Hello everybody, welcome back to Let's Code Games, where we learn how to code games using Unity. And we're in week 5 now. This is week 5 for our Zelda tutorial series, and I'm really happy about the progress so far. I mean, if you think about it, we only been working on this for 4 weeks and 2 hours each week, so this is progress from 8 hours of work, minus all the art, of course. The art did way more, took way more time, but yeah, let's see what we already did and talk about what we're going to do today. So first of all, well, obviously we can walk already. We did that in week 1 and 2, and last week we added interactions with objects. So now we can walk up to the sign, for example, and read the sign, and we can walk up to the chest, and we're getting something, but we're not seeing that we're getting anything yet. So the console is telling us that a shield was added to our inventory, but we don't see it yet. So that's something we can work on today. And another thing that we can interact with is the master sword, the sword up here in this beautiful temple. And if we just go up to it, press space, and nothing happens because I broke something out, I guess. Oh yeah, okay. So I'm sure, so what I did off screen before I started the tutorials, I changed a little bit how we interact with stuff. We talked about this last time. Before, we had a sphere that was cast, and when we walk up to something, we find all the objects that are in the sphere and then interact with those. And I changed this to a square because our character, let me show this, our character's collision is a square as well. You can see it here. So what I basically did is that I'm not casting a sphere anymore to check all the objects in the surroundings. I'm casting a square that is just slightly bigger than the collision sphere from our character. So we really have to walk up to the objects we want to interact with and stuff. And I'm sure that the distance to the sword is just too far, so it didn't work. So let's see here what this sword is. So you see the collision for the sword ends here in the stairs, and then we see, oh yeah, there's the problem. You see the collision from the shrine here that is a little bigger. There's a big distance to the sword here, so I'm sure the problem is that the sword is too far away for the character to reach. So let's just we can just move the sword up a little bit and then move the visuals down again so that it sticks out of the shrine again. And then let's see here, maybe a little bit more. We can even just make the collider a little bit bigger, so it should work perfectly. This should work. Let's test it out. So hopefully we fixed this issue, and we are back. There you go, and we can interact with the sword. And again, just the same, just like the shield, the console basically says one sword added. So there's a couple of things we can do today, and one of those things is when Link picks up an item from the chest or from the sword. Right now we don't get any feedback that we got an item, and we have some cool animation frames to give the user some feedback. So let me pull those up here, and it's the attack here in the attack sprite sheet. Yeah, you can see here that we basically in the top right corner we have those 2 animation frames. And the first one will be used when we are picking up the sword, and the second one will be used when we're picking up something from a chest. And we can do that today, which just giving the user a little bit of feedback. And then we also have to think about how we show the items in the correct position. And you can see here as well that we have tons of attack animations for the character on the left side here. And I think this is going to be the most interesting thing that we can do today, and really make sure that the character is able to attack stuff. So we have to figure out the system where we can attach the sword that we have. Let me go to it. We have a sword here, and basically you have to figure out the system how where we attach the sword to the character. And we could have, of course, draw the sword right into the sprite sheet of the character, but by having it as a separate object and then attaching it to the character, we can later on use the same animations for different weapons and stuff. So we could have different swords, and maybe the hook shot could have the first 3 frames here, and then just and then the hook goes out to this to the front, which is actually what Zelda 3 is doing. So for the hookshot, they're just using the first 3 frames from the attack animation. And yeah, we could have like different staffs and stuff like that. So we can attach all those different weapons to our character and always reuse the same animation. But yeah, to figure out how to do that, that's going to be a very interesting system, because the position and the rotation of the sword changes for each frame. So we have to create a system so that we can design the position and rotation of the items very easily without having to, well, code them. That would be bad, because then we have to put in like the different positions and rotations by hand, which is not good. So we're going to learn how to create a system where we can attach stuff to the character and make those items animate with the character as well. And we'll see how far we get. I mean, we also have a shield item, so we can, if we finish the sword today and we still have time, we can also attach the shield to the character once we pick that up. We have a bunch of stuff that we can attack with our sword. So, for example, we have the bushes here, and so we can start attacking the bushes and stuff like that. So yeah, let's start. Let's start with that, I think. I mean, let's start with the attack thing, because that is a big system, and I don't know how much time it will take today. And if we have time left over, we continue with the pickup feedback for the sword once we pick it up, and the shield and stuff like that. So first of all, what we're going to do is create the 4 attack animations that we have. I already have the character sheet imported in Unity here, but we have to do the same thing that we did with the walk cycle. So you can see here, if we open the walk cycle, we have tons of different frames here, and basically for each frame we have a different sprite, even though they're actually in a file that has all the sprites in one file. And Unity gives us a way to split those up so we can use them, but it's easier for the animator to create just one file and have them next to each other, so they can figure out if they're the same height and same color and stuff like that. So we have the same thing as I showed it to you before with the character. Basically, we have tons of different animation frames on one image, and we want to split those up. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we are telling Unity, once you selected your sprite sheet, that this is not a single sprite, but these are multiple sprites. This is the first step, and once you did that, you can go to the sprite editor, and this enables you, selecting the multiple sprites enables you to access this slice menu on the top left corner here. And I set the character, so you can slice the character many different ways. You can do it by hand, just drag different rectangles around him and stuff like that. But we set up the sprite sheet in a way that each character has the same size, basically. The whole sprite sheet is 124 by 124. We have 8 characters in here, so each character is 128 pixel by 128 pixel. Which makes it very easy to slice them, because we can just tell Unity that this is a grid, and say put in the dimensions 128 by 128. The pivot is always in the center, and there you go. Unity figures out where in the grid some pixel data is, and then just creates those squares for us, those sprites for us, and ignores all the empty space down here. So later on we can add new animations down here, and they're added basically. Okay, so we apply this, And once this is applied, you can see that when I open the sprite here, we also have all the different attack animations here. So they're all called lung attack now, so this is actually, well, this is not right because we have different animations as well. We have an animation where we get hit here as well. We have the pickup animations. So in order to fix that, we go back to the sprite editor, and you can click on the animation and on the different frames, and then in the bottom right corner you see information about the sprite. And in this case, the top one is the name. So we're going to call this lung hit 1. We're call this is lung hit 2, lung hit 3, and then lung pickup 1 and lung pickup 2, and then we apply it again. This makes it just a little bit easier for us to figure out later on what we're working with. So if you have all the attack sprites here, and then at the bottom you have the lung hit and the lung pickup sprites. Alright, so now we have to create the new animation here. So we have 4 different animations for each direction, and let's just start with, we're going to create all 4 by simply selecting the frames that belong to this animation. So those are 8 frames for the, no, it's not 8 frames. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 7th is to the left. Alright, so 6 frames for each attack animation. And then, so we select all 6, and then we drag them to the scene. And Unity creates an animation for us. So we can call this is attack down. And Unity created the animation. In what folder? I think I have an animation folder. Haven't I? I haven't. It's in the same folder. So attack down, it's up here. Yeah. What Unity also created is a animator controller, but we don't really need that. This is because we drag this to the scene. We don't need the controller because we have this controller basically just has this one new animation that we just created. But we're going to add this animation to our own controller that we have. Which is a little bit more common, which already has the idle and the walk stuff in there, so we can delete those again in a second. But let's continue creating the other 3 animations. So we have attack down, now we have attack left, put this over here, attack left, and then attack right. Grab this as well. Attack right. And then attack up. Attack up. Alright, and we can delete those again. These are basically just so that Unity creates the animation for us, and we don't have to do it by hand. We also can delete the controllers that Unity created for us. And then we're going to work on our animation controller again that our character has. So, you can see here that our our animator controller right now consists of an idle animation and a walk animation. And when if we open those up, those are basically actually animation blend trees. So those consist of multiple different animations. If we double click the idle stuff, you can see here that this is a blend tree, and we have the left, right, up and down in here as well. And basically by having the direction X and Y set, we can tell the animator which animation should be played, or in this case, which direction we are facing. And we're going to do the same thing for our attack blend tree. Okay, so let's create a new blend tree. Right click and then create state from new blend tree. So we have a blend tree here. We call it attack. And then we double click again. So we're in the blend tree, and first of all we tell the blend tree that this is a 2D blend tree. So we can have two parameters that influence where the character is looking. We have the direction X set up here, and then we want direction Y set up for the second parameter. So this looks like the blend tree we had before, 2 directions, and then we add 4 motion fields in here. Those are basically the animations, and we can then set up the parameters. If position X is negative and position Y is positive, and position Y is 0, then we look to the left and stuff like that. So we set up 4 different motion fields. And the first one is position X is negative and Y is 0. Second one is X is positive and Y is 0, and then X is 0 and Y is negative, and X is 0 and Y is positive, which is basically left, right, down, up. And now we are going to add the attack animations that we just created to these motion fields up here. So the first one is the attack down stuff, so we put it here. The second one is attack up. No, this is wrong. The first one, the attack down, is here. This is the Y, negative Y and positive Y. And then the first 2 is negative X, so this is attack left, and positive X, which is attack right. So let's see if we did everything right. So we can see a small preview here. This is a 3D preview, but it's all right. So let's change the X direction, or I'm looking in the wrong direction. So X positive to the right, X negative to the left, and then the direction Y positive is basically, we see his back attacking up and then attacking down. So this works perfectly. Alright, so the blend tree is done, and we can go back to our base layer. And now we have to tell the animator when to attack. And for this we are going to use a new parameter up here. Right now we have 2 flow parameters, so direction X and direction Y, for the direction we are facing, and we have a boolean is moving, so we can see if the character is moving or not. And now we introduce a new parameter type, which is called a trigger. And the trigger basically is similar to a boolean, but it's only true for 1 frame when you initialize the trigger, and then it's false back again immediately. So this is basically just, well, as it says, if you want to trigger an event, like in our case, if you want to trigger the attack, this is perfect. So we call this do attack, and then we want to go into the do attack, into the attack animation from whatever state we are currently in. So as you can see here, we set up transitions from idle to walk and from walk to idle, and we could do that as well, but since we basically want to attack, it doesn't really matter in which animation we are. If we're in walk, if we're in idle, we want to attack, we can use this any state here. And if we set up a transition from the any state, then basically whenever this transition, the condition for this transition is true, it will get executed immediately and the attack animation will be played. So right click the any state and make a transition to the attack state, and then click on the arrow so you can set up the parameters, or the conditions rather. So let's say this is happens instantly basically, and the conditions is empty right now, and we basically want to use the do attack, and we don't have to set up any parameters here. Basically, once the do attack trigger is hit, then we want to go to the attack animation here. And then afterwards, we also have to figure out the transition out of the attack move. And we basically say make 2 transitions and check and go to. We check if we are moving, then we go to walk, and if we are not moving, then we go back to idle. And so we deselect has. Wait, no, it's not has exit time. It has an exit time. Basically, if the attack animation, let's see if this works here. Let me. So basically, the attack animation plays completely, and then it goes back to the walk animation. I'm not sure why it jumps jumps to the other side here, but I'm sure this is only a preview thing. So basically it has an exit time, and we don't have a condition, which means that whenever the animation is done, we're transitioning back. But oh, I'm sorry. No, we want to add a condition here, which is moving is true. Then we transition back to walk, and we do the same thing for idle. Is moving, if is moving is false, then we transition back to idle. Okay, so to test this quickly, we have to let's go to our movement control. And in our movement control, we basically already used the spacebar for the action to read stuff. And I don't like, let's use a different button here, because I want to use space for attack. So in many RPGs and stuff like that, you can use the use E for use, and then we create a new method here, copy this, and then use the space here. And just as a reminder, I'm using I'm basically accessing, hard coding the keys here. So I have WASD down here and E here and space here. And there's a different way to do it in Unity, so you can have it a little bit more dynamic and the user can set up their own control scheme. But for now, this is just easier to read for beginners. So we're doing this for now, and once we introduce new control schemes like a gamepad or a touch control, stuff like that, we're changing it. All right, so and the space, we add this to the update function, and we're not using onActionPress here, which is a method from the base control, but we are using something similar. Let's create a new method here on attackPressed. We don't need the interaction stuff in on attackPress, and then we change the spacebar to on attackPressed. Okay. So now that we have to send the attack command to our model, and I'm going to add this to our movement model, because I think an attack move is basically also belongs to the movement model. So I add a new public method here, which we can trigger then. So public void on attack started. Oh no, we do, it's not on. It's not an event. It's like do attack. Do attack is good. I always like to have a verb. I mean, attack is a verb as well, but I don't know. Just having one verb feels kind of wrong. I'm not sure why. It's just a preference thing. All right. So from our base control, we have to check if we have the movement model, and if we do, we basically call do attack. So let's see what we let's just check if we set up everything correctly. Let's put a debug log here, call this attack, and just see if the switching around of the keys worked. So let's press play. And when I press space, perfect. The console says attack, so this works. And if I go up to the sign and press E, the text pops up. Okay, so this worked. The change worked. So now we have to play the attack animation. If you remember from the first or second week, we have a completely different class. We have separated out how the game works, and then how the game is displayed. This is the model view control pattern, and so this is the attack thing. Is basically we are in the model right now, but actually the view has to be triggered as well, that there's going to be an attack. So let's figure out. For now, we can just call the view from the control stuff because we have base control. Do we have the view set up here in the controller? We don't have the view set up yet, so let's set up a reference to the view. This is the character movement view. Movement view, and then get a reference to this. Get component character movement view. And then in the view we need a do attack method as well. And now we have to figure out how we want to use our model view control pattern. So in the first episode we basically talked about that some programmer teams don't let the model and the view talk at all, and just basically just talk through the control. But I always thought that this is a little it's a little cumbersome to work with. So what we are going to do is we basically calling the do attack method on the view, and this basically just calls the animator trigger. And did I call it do attack as well? I think so. Yes, this is do attack as well. Do attack. And we're going to call this from the model. And we're going to call this from the model because even though the user pressed space and wants to attack, there might be a condition where the model says, hey, you can't attack at this moment, and we have to check for that. So this so basically the control calls the model and says, hey, I want to attack. The model figures out if we can attack. Right now there's no condition for this, so basically we're just attacking. But later on, if we have different weapons, maybe you have a weapon that you can't use at this moment. Some RPGs set it up in a way that if you're in a city or something, you can't use your weapons, stuff like that. So the model checks for all those conditions and then initializes the attack animation. So let's oh no, let's do it differently. Let's do it differently. Let's basically have a method here that tells us can we attack. And for now this is just true, it's always true, but later on we can set it to false under some circumstances. And if we do, then do attack is being called here, and so the control is basically checking the movement model. If movement model can attack is false, then we just do nothing. And if we can attack, then we call the movement model do attack, and we also call the view do attack. And this way the model and the view are still decoupled, which is good because we could switch out the view if we want to later, much easier this way. So if we set up everything correctly, we can basically now press play, and if we hit space, the attack animation should play. There you go. And it even works in every direction. That's cool. It looks nice. The animation is a little slow, so let's fix that. Let's select the visuals for the main character. Open up the animation window, and we head over to the attack animation. Let's play this, and let's make it twice as fast. Let's see. I think this is good. It might be a little too fast. We have to figure that out once the sword is attached to the character. So let's make them all twice as fast, and attack up twice as fast as well. Okay, and then play the game again. Oh, it's a little fast. Yeah, this is. I think this is too fast. Let's go back to 20. Let's see what. How does that look? This is better. I think 20 is good. And then the last one as well. 20. Cool. So there's our attack animation. Okay, so one thing that is happening, so if we repeatedly hit space, we can attack over and over again. So that might be a condition for the model to say, can we attack? So it checks, are we still attacking? And if we are, then we don't want to be able to attack again. So we can do that first. And there are different ways to do that. We could basically check which animation is playing, but then the view has to know about what the animation names are and stuff like that. So this is I don't like that very much. What we can do though is we can initialize, we can send events when we from our animation stuff. This is very cool, a cool part of Unity that many people don't know about. So let's set up in our model. Let's set up character movement model. Let's set up two event functions here. Public void on attack started and public void on attack finished. And we want to store a variable if we are attacking. So we have a boolean here is attacking, and in the method on attack started we set this is attacking to true, and in the method on attack finish we set this to false. So, and now we can call these two methods, we can call these from the animation, which is really cool. So let me show you this. So we open up the animation window again once everything's compiled here. So this is the animation window. Let's go to attack down, and in the first frame we're going to click this little button here. This is basically like a long arrow with a plus sign next to it, and it reads add event if you hover over it. So we want to add an event, and this window pops up here, and now we can select a function. And right now we cannot. Oh right, okay, we have to do something differently. We have to do one extra step for this to work, because as you can see we have our animator here on the visuals component, and the model that we just set up is not on the same game object. The events in Unity basically can call functions in classes that are on the same game object as the animator. So let's create a new method for that called an animation listener. Call it character animation listener. And basically what we do in the animation listener is we set up the same events and then just forward them to the model. So let's copy those two methods here, open the animation listener and paste them in here. But we're not setting is attacking in here. What we want to do is call the character movement model and basically call the same methods on the model, which then can set its attacking method to true or false. So in our awake function, we find a reference to the model. Let's not find a reference. This is not good. Let's make this public, because we might not know where the component is in the hierarchy. So movement model, and then we check if the movement model is null, then we don't want to do anything. otherwise call on attack started. And we're going to do the same with on attack finished. And now, once we add this component to the same object, so the same game object that has the animator and the animator attached to it. So let's attach the animation listener to the same object here, and we set up the variable here. Now what we can do is, when we open the animation window again, we go back to the attack animation. I think I started in attack down. Yes, still have it here. You still see the event here, but no function selected if I hover over it. But if I double click it, this window pops back up again. And now if I open the drop down menu, you can see the two methods that we just created: on attack started and on attack finished. So just to clarify again how this works, basically because we have a class on the same game object that the animator is attached to, and this class has two public methods that we called on attack started and on attack finish. We can then access those methods from the animation timeline. So on the first frame of an attack animation, basically, we say we want to call the... what's going on? Double click this. Why do you... Okay, let's do it. So on the first frame, we want to call the on attack started method, and on the last frame, we want to call the on attack finish method. And this is really, really cool to use if you want the animation to drive something. For example, in the walk cycle, if you want a footstep sound to play whenever the character's foot is on the ground, you can use these events to check, basically get an event back on the precise frame that your foot hits the ground, so you can use that. And for us, we basically use this to see if our attack animation started and if when it has finished. So let's set this up for all four attack animations. On attack started and on attack finished. For this one as well. And you can use this for all kinds of different stuff. If you have a fire staff, for example, you can figure out when the fire staff or the animation is in a specific frame to create your fireball. So the creation of a fireball is synced up with the animation, stuff like that. It's really, really useful for all kinds of different things. So let's finish up here and on attack finished for the last event as well. So now, whenever one of those four animations is being played, attack left, right, down, or up, we are first calling the on attack started method in our animation listener. The animation listener is on the same game object as the animator. And our animation listener basically calls the same methods on attack started on our model. It basically tells our model the attack has started and the attack has finished. And the model that can basically then use this in our can attack method here. So can we attack? Well, if attacking is true, then no. If we are already attacking, these are the wrong brackets. If we are already attacking, then we don't want to be able to attack again. And let's see if this actually works. Let's debug this and see if those methods are being called correctly. And we set this up here. Have we implemented can attack yet? It should be in the view. Let's go over to the movement view. No, it should be in the control, right? Is it on attack pressed? Oh yeah, okay, can attack, we have it here. So let's see if everything works as expected. Let me close the timeline here and open up the console. And once we hit space, on attack started, on attack finished. And then on attack started again immediately. That is not good. So I think what's happening here now is that it's basically transitioning back, and during the transition it's calling this first frame again. So we can do two different things here. Let's go over to the attack animation and see here. You can see here that in the animation transition, basically, during the transition here, the transitions are really bad for 2D games. Actually, they don't make any sense. At least I don't think they do. At least for sprite animated things. So right now you can see basically my transition back to the idle animation was too large. So you can see this by that Unity basically displays a second attack animation here, and I want to make sure that the out frame is earlier than the second animation start. This way the attack started event shouldn't be fired twice. Let's see. Let's open up a new console again. And there you go. Attack started, attack finished. And when I press space all the time, I basically have to wait till it is finished before I can attack again. Cool. So now we are basically punching the air, which is also pretty nice, but not very, very efficient to attack bushes and stuff. So let's figure out how we can attach the sword to it and animate the sword with it. So we have a sword. We have a sword without a handle, so we can attach it right to the fist of the character. Excuse me. And let's go to the items here. So we have our sword. And what we're going to do is we create the sword as a child of the character, and not only that, we're making a not really complex, but we're creating a hierarchy here, a few different game objects, so we can attach different objects later and animate them all individually and stuff. So first of all, what we are going to do is create an empty game object called weapon hand, and this is a child of lung as well, or actually this is a child of the visuals, or let's call it weapon parent. Right now this weapon parent is basically just in the center, and what we're going to do later, once we pick up weapons or once we show weapons, we're going to attach those weapons to the weapon parent, to the center of the weapon parent. So we can use this weapon parent to basically set up the animation. Well, I'm going to show you. It's easier to understand when I show you. Let's open up the animation window again, which is Command or Control 6 as a shortcut, or up here in Window Animation. And let's go to the attack down. This is the best to see basically. So you see the left arm basically swings the sword here, and we have to attach it. In the animation, you can see right now the visuals are being animated, and if we open this up, this basically shows us the animations, the frames that we are animating. So basically each frame we're switching the renderer to a new picture. But we can add new properties here that get animated in the same animation. So let's add a new property here. And this property gives, once you click this, you have tons of different options what kinds of property you want to animate. And basically you can animate anything that is a public variable, even your custom scripts. If they have public variables, you can animate them. Well, rather, if they have public variables that can be animated, like floats and ints and stuff like that. We have a public variable here, which is basically an object, but we cannot animate an object. But what we want to do is we want to go to the weapon parent. Since the weapon parent is a child of the visuals object, we also get the weapon parent here. So we can animate the weapon parent. And we can animate its position. So double click this. Not double click. What is it? Oh. So I have to scroll to the right and then hit plus. This is not very useful. Alright, so weapon parent position, and we also want to add the weapon parent rotation. So now the two new properties got added here, and we can start animating them as well. So for each frame we can basically set up the sword where we want it and animate it. And I'm going to set this up to basically to the very top of the fist, and then we're going to set up the sword in a way that its pivot is on the very bottom of the sword, so it gets attached correctly. So let's do this for one animation here, so the position is pretty easy to set up because we can see pretty visually where the fist of the character is. This is not the case for the rotation though. The rotation is a little harder, especially if we don't see the sword. So, what is this? This shouldn't be here. So let's remove all those frames. And okay, so now if I scrub through the animation, you can see I have the weapon parent selected. So this movement transform here basically shows the position of the weapon parent. So you can see this gets animated pretty nicely with the animation, and you can do it pretty visually. So this is the great part about Unity's animation system. You can add tons of different properties here and preview this in the editor and edit each frame individually. So it just looks right. Okay, but for the rotation, I want to add a sword right now, so I can basically debug how the sword looks. So let's first of all create the sword item. And as always, I'm going to create an empty game object first, sword, and then I create the sword as a child of this empty game object. And you're going to see why in a second. I have items, sword, and drag this into the sword here. Good. So this is the pivot of my root object, and the sword has an offset to that. So let's set this up, and you can see this is why I created the visuals as a parent object, because the pivot of the sword is set to the center right now, and we could set up the pivot on a different position in the sprite editor, but by using this setup, basically having an empty game object as the parent and then having the sword as a child object, we can basically set this sword wherever we want. And I'm using the bush here just as a guide to know where the pivot is. And so you can see now that basically the pivot of the whole object, of the parent object, is exactly at the bottom of the sword where our character would grab it. And just move it a little bit more to the left. This looks good. I think a little bit more. Okay. Well, I could just set this to 0. I think this should work. No, it's not. It's a little bit to the left. All right. So this is our sword object now, and I'm going to create a prefab from this object. So later on, I can instantiate this object in the game whenever I want to. So items, I'm going to create a prefab here. And basically what I'm doing is later on in the game, I'm going to create the sword in the center of the weapon parent. So this sword will go to the weapon parent and then go to 0, 0, 0. You put this to the front here. So the sword goes to 0, 0, 0 of the weapon parent, as you can see here. And so once I animate this, the sword moves with our hand. And now that we added this here, basically as a helper, we can also see how we want to rotate the sword. Let's rotate the sword so it extends the arm and looks good. Move this over here. Perfect. This looks good. And then we're going to do this basically for all the frames. Yeah. See you later, Bob. See you next week at the very latest. And let's rotate the sword. And now, since we are now added the sword, we can see that we want to move it a little closer to the arm here. And do the same thing for all the frames. Oh, my monitor is glaring a little bit, so it's kind of hard to see. I think this looks good. And the next one. And I think everybody can see the benefit of the visual animation system from Unity now, because we can really set up how we want the stuff to look. So let's see this animation here basically. So play this, chip, chip, chip. Yeah, this looks good. And because the sword is a parent, so the sword itself is not animated at all. We only animated the weapon parent. So we could basically now, let's just make a demonstration here, and use and abuse the shield as a sword here. And we could add the shield to the weapon parent here. Let's disable the sword so we only have the shield. And the shield should be a little bit more in the center. And so now we don't want to animate those. And now you can see if I animate this. No, right, I didn't set up the pivot properly from the shield, but basically you can see the idea, because I can just switch out the child object here, the item basically that gets attached, and we have a completely new... Oh, because I'm still in... I get it. I don't want to animate this. And this. I can basically switch out the child of the weapon parent and they get animated. And I could use different swords for that, and yeah, whatever we want. So this is a very flexible and cool system. And we're going to do the same for all the other animations now. But first of all, we have to, let's remove this here, and we have to figure out what we're going to do with the weapon parent when we're not in the animations here. Basically, when there's nothing here, we don't want to have the sword floating around all the time. And we can use the events that we created before for this as well. So we have the on attack started and on attack finished events, and we can use those to enable and disable the sword visuals. Because in Zelda 3 at least, the sword is not always visible. It's only visible when you're actually attacking, and you don't see it attached to the character when he is running around. So we can use the on attack started and on attack finished events to show and hide the sword. So let's make sure the sword is hidden from the start, and I'm basically just going to disable the sword. want to disable you. And what we can do in the... Let's do the... Since this is a visual thing, let's do this in the view. In the view we can... let's get a reference to our weapon parent. We set this up in the editor. And then basically when the event hits, we are going to see if there are any children in the parent, and if there are, we're going to activate and deactivate the children. So let's set up the transform here. Weapon parent is going here. And we have to figure out, I'm not sure if Unity, if I can find the object, if it's disabled in the editor. We have to figure this out. But basically we need a on attack finished. We don't need an on attack started event, because we basically have the do attack here as well. But let's be consistent. Let's create an on attack started event here as well. So on attack, so we have to call those two methods as well. We're going to call them from the animation listener. Public character movement view. And then reverse this. If this is not null, we put this in here. This is not null, we put this in here, and we're going to do the same for the view. View, 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 view. Alright, so we have to set up this reference as well. In the animation listener, set up the view, so both get called. And now we can go to the view and basically we create a new method and call it void set weapon set weapon enable weapon activate weapon. I think activate is the right term that Unity uses. Do activate. And what we're going to do is we iterate over all the children of the weapon parent that we have. Weapon parent child count, while I is smaller than weapon parent child count. So we iterate over all of them and then set in the game object set active. So basically we can on attack started, active, I don't like activate weapon, set weapon active, because they have set active as well. So set weapon active to true, everything gets activated, and then on finished set weapon active to false. Let's see if that works. I'm not quite sure myself. Because we've disabled the sort in the editor, so we have to see if Unity actually allows us to access it in the game. It does. No, that doesn't work, but let's see what... This is the event from here. Let's see if everything gets called correctly first. Log set weapon activate, and then see what the child count is. I'm sure it's 0 because it's deactivated here. Set weapon active 1. So it should work. Let's see why it doesn't. Let's not maximize this. So which weapon are we actually activating here? Weapon game object name, and let's see what the parameter is as well. Do activate, do active. What? Do activate. Okay, let's see what's going on here. So we're always setting this to true, which is, so this is not right. So we don't want to set this to true all the time. We want this to set this to false as well. But even though it says we are setting it to true, it is not being set to true, and we can't actually. Why can't we? Let's see what happens if we have it pre-activated. So we're walking around with the sword in our head. Why is it setting it to true and to false, and to true in both ways? So set weapon active, do active is always true. Why is it always true? Are we calling start 2 times? Yes, we're calling on attack started 2 times. We're not calling on attack finish as we should. So now we're doing true and false, but it's not disabling it. Why is it not disabling it? I'm calling set active, aren't I? What is happening right now? This is weird. This is weird. Let's call set active false every time. Am I calling it on the right one? No, I'm calling it on the sword. I'm not sure why I can't call set active here. I have to figure that out later. But what we can do for now is we basically just do get component in children. We find the renderer and enable or disable the renderer. This works. This should work. But the problem with this method is that later on maybe we have a weapon that has multiple different renderers. So this is not a very robust method to do, but for now it at least works. And then I'm going to figure out why I can't call set active, and we can do this next time, because I don't want to spend too much time on finding the bug here. Okay, so let's use this for now, and it looks pretty good actually. But we still have the problem that we have a sword sticking out of our head when we hit play for the first time. So once we attack once and the renderer is disabled, it works. So basically what we're just going to do is we disable the renderer in our start method. So in start, call set weapon active to false. And there it is. Press play again. And there you go. We don't have a sword in the beginning, and once I hit space, at least for in the down animation for now, our attack animation gets played. And I think it could be a little faster, I guess. So let's make sure. Oh, I think I know what the problem is. I think I might. I think if we go to the animation... No, it's just... Nope. Nope, everything works. Alright, anyway, it doesn't matter. So, basically what we now have to do is we have to do the same thing for all the different animations. So we're going to add a property here, set up the weapon parent position, and the rotation. But it's going to take a while, and this is not very interesting on stream, so I'm going to do that for next time in between streams, so you don't have to watch me set up the sword for all different positions here, because there's something much more interesting that we can work on. And this is basically, now that we have an attack animation, we want to attack stuff. So for now, the attack only works for the bottom animation, and we basically have a problem here. So everywhere else the sword just appears in our head. As I said, I will set this up for next time. But we can still attack the bush here if we attack him from above, and that should suffice to kill it. So we have to figure out a way how we can see that we are attacking, and then also that while we are attacking, that we are hitting our bush with the sword. I mean, we do know that we could do the same thing that we're doing with the sign and the chest, basically seeing what game objects are in our surroundings and checking those if we can attack them. And we're going to do something slightly different, because the sword itself can have a collider as well. So we're going to set up a collider on the sword. It's a box collider 2D. Let's make sure this has the right dimensions for the sword. Up to here, and then make it a little smaller like this, so it's basically just the blade. I think this is good. Maybe even a little smaller. Yeah, this is nice. And now we can create a component that looks for collisions with the sword. And if you remember from before, we're doing the interactables by creating, let's go to the chest here. We basically created an object interactable here. And simply by dragging the component interactable to the game object, the object is now interactable. And I want to have the same thing happening with attackable, basically. So I'm going to create an attackable component, and everything that we can attack is has to have an attackable component attached to it. And then we can do a very similar thing to before. And we can basically just check for collisions with the sword. And if the sword collides with any objects, it checks if this object has an attackable component. And if it does, we call this attackable component and say, hey, you have been hit by a sword. And then the component can figure out what to do. For example, for an enemy, it could reduce the health of the enemy. And for a bush like this, it doesn't have health. So whenever it gets attacked, it immediately gets destroyed. So let's do this. Let's do that. We're going to do that just like with the interactable stuff here. Let's actually put those into an interactable folder now. And we create a new folder, attackable. And we're going to use the very same system. So we have a base component that is attackable base, and it sets up the communication and just the methods that we can have. And then we can have many different attackable components, because later on maybe there are different attackables. You have a different attackable for an enemy, for a bush. Maybe there's an enemy that is resistant to sword attacks, and so you need a different component for that. And each attackable component should determine what happens once it gets hit. So that's why we're going to create an attackable base and an attackable. I mean, I could just call it attackable bush. And I think I'm going to do that for now, because it's just a bush. Later on, I'm sure we could use the attackable bush for many different objects. But we rename it later when we actually get to that part. Let's go to our attackable base here. And the only thing that we want to set up is, so we're going to tell, is a method that is called void on hit. And we could also even get a parameter here what has hit us, what item has hit us. So and this is a virtual method, and we're going to give ourselves a warning here. Warning, no on hit event setup for, and then our own name, gameObject.name. So this way, if we forget to implement this onHit method, we get a warning. Okay, let's go over to the attackable bush. Make this a base attackable, and now we override this onHit method just like we did with the interactables. onHit, and this gets called basically when we get hit. And for the bush, we're going to do something very simple for now. Basically, we just change the sprite to a destroyed bush, and maybe create a particle effect and stuff like that. So let's do a sprite here and call it, we have a destroyed sprite. We need, for this to work, we need a reference to our sprite renderer. And we set up references in wake as always. So get component in children, get our sprite renderer, and then we can do two things when we get hit here. First of all, if our destroys, no, we don't check for it. Basically, we just the renderer, we set the sprite of the renderer to our destroyed sprite that we can set up. This is basically a public variable, so we can set this destroyed sprite up in the editor. So whatever, we can put whatever sprite in here and it just gets swapped. And what we can also do is we can check if get component, if we have a collider, we can disable the collider. But yeah, let's do it. Yeah, it's alright. We do this for now, and we switch it change it later if we need a more complex approach here. So if we have a collider, then we want to disable the collider. Basically, the bush, you cannot walk through the bush if it's intact, and if once you attack it, you can walk through the bush. Okay, so this is the stuff that the attackable stuff. Now we have to figure out the collision stuff. First of all, let's go to our bush here and add our attackable bush sprite, and then I also have a sprite here. So this is our sprite that we have right now, and I also have a destroyed sprite that we can switch to. So we're just going to set this here, and we have to remember to set up the pixels per unit. So the sword has a collider, and we're going to create a component for the sword, which is basically let's call it a collide weapon, basically because it listens for collisions and then does stuff. Later on we could also have or let's call it weapon collider. Weapon collider is pretty good because later on we might have weapons that don't collide with something, but they create a fireball and the fireball collides. So let's call this weapon collider, and I'm going to create this in here, a new folder for weapons, and call this weapon collider. And we set this to the same game object that has the collider of the sword, so basically our parent sword object. Let's go to the scripts, and the Unity provides us with very easy access methods to check if a collision has happened. And this method is called void on. I hope that I get the spelling right now. So let's see. On collision enter 2D. Let's check this actually in the reference, so we don't make any mistakes here. Site unity3d.com on collision enter 2D. Yeah. So on collision enter 2D, and it needs a collision 2D object as the parameter. So on collision enter 2D, collision 2D as the parameter. And so what we're going to do now is we're going to see if the game object that we're colliding with has an attackable component. So collision, and we get a reference to the collider or even the game object that we're colliding with. See if this has an attackable base. And if we find this attackable, and if we find it, if it's not null, then we can call the onHit method on it. And we need the item type here. So we are going to give the weapon collider a public item type method and call this type. So we can pass it along. So we could reuse the same component for different weapons and stuff like that. And the cool part is, because the attackable bush, we set this up as so the attackable bush is inheriting from attackable base, which is our base class that sets up this onHit interface basically. And because the attackable bush is inheriting from attackable base, the get component attackable base would also return the attackable bush if it's present. because the attackable bush is an attackable base. And this is the cool part, because now that we call the onHit method, basically we could have tons of different attackable implementations, but they're all an attackable base. So this piece of code will work for all of them. Okay, so now one thing that it will still not, I don't think that it will work quite yet, because let me see if I can find this quickly. No, I don't know right now where I can find it. So Unity basically has there's a table somewhere that states which preconditions have to be met so that two objects are colliding, and one of them has to have a rigid body attached to it. So we're going to create a rigid body for the sword as well, but we're going to say that that it doesn't have gravity. It basically it's set to never sleep. Well, we can, yeah, interpolate is fine, but is it in 2D as well? I'm not sure if this is actually right in 2D as well. Let's check first without rigid body. We set the type to the sword here, and let's put a debug in here as well. Debug log hit collision game object name. So let's check this first. So we're hitting the stone with a sword, so we actually don't need. Oh yeah, and we're attacking the bush, and the bush got destroyed. So nice, this actually works. So disregard all that rigid body stuff. But something that didn't work was that we disable the collider of the bush. So let's see why this didn't work. And the collider is still active. Let's go to the bush and see. It's, oh yeah, because it has to be collided 2D. We're in 2D land here, and you can also see an issue already because I wasn't able to deactivate the sword, because now the sword acts as a collider from the character, so I cannot walk to the into the stone anymore. But let's go over to the bush, attack this bush here, and then we can walk over it. Let me make this big so you guys can see it properly. But it works. It works like a charm. Well, not like a charm quite yet, but yeah. So we can destroy our bush here. Go up to it, attack it, and then our destroyed bush sprite gets swapped in, and we can even start walking over the bush here. That's really cool. We need more bushes here so I can destroy them all. Okay, so we have to figure out how to disable the sword, or how to. Okay, so I'm going to cheat for now. And I'm going to just move the sword away, this is not very good coding here, but for now what I want to do is I want to disable the sword, but it's not letting me to disable the sword. What I can try is to disable the weapon parent. Maybe that works. Let's see. This was in the view, right? Yes, we have the weapon parent here. So what set weapon active. Let's see if we can. deactivate this. Do activate. What days do you stream? Well, I'm always streaming on Saturday. It's always from 6 to 8 European time, Central European time. It should be from noon to 2 on the East Coast, and from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. on the West Coast. So let's see if this works. If this works, then we should see the sword disappear immediately when we hit play. Oh, nice. This works. This is way better. So we basically just disable the weapon parent and enable it whenever we need the weapon. This is fine, we can use that. So now we can walk into the stone again, because the collider of the sword is not disturbing us. And now we can, yeah, everything works, and we can attack the bush. Nice. Let's add some more bushes here to have a little bit more fun destroying some stuff. So I create a prefab from the bush here, and then I duplicate this a bunch of times. Can surround the chest here. I think I have 2 bushes in here, yes. So you can only access the chest. If you have a sword. So let's see what happens if we have tons of different bushes here. And attack. Nice. Okay. So one thing that I can do here that is not possible in Zelda, and I want to fix this, is at the moment I can walk and attack at the same time. But I want the character to stand still when we're attacking. So let's go over to our movement model. We have our variable is attacking, and we can basically see in the update movement if we are attacking, then we want to set the velocity to 0 and return. This should fix that problem. No? Why not? What have I done wrong here? If frozen or attacking is true. Is it too fast? No, that can't be right. Oh, it hasn't finished compiling. So yeah, it works now. Alright. I was not patient enough. Or I haven't saved it or something like that. Okay, so now we this actually feels like Zelda now. So we can attack stuff, but while we are attacking we cannot move. And we can attack all these different things here. But we have one slight problem. When we walk close to something and we attack it, then we basically, because the collider of the sword gets added, we get pushed back a little bit, and I don't like that a lot. The sword actually, even though it has a collider, it shouldn't collide with stuff in this way that we could get pushed back here. And so in order to do that, we could try to change the collider of the sword to a trigger. You can see in every collider you have the the property is trigger in here, and a trigger is basically it's basically a collider that doesn't affect the physics. So a collider, if it moves into stuff, then it collides with stuff, and the physics get affected, so you get pushed back. But a trigger, it only says, "Hey, I hit something," but it doesn't. It will not push you back. You will be able to move through triggers and stuff like that. So you can use you can use triggers for coins, for example, that you can pick up that you just want to pick up and that shouldn't push you back and stuff like that. And so let's use a trigger here, but when we use a trigger, then we have to change our code a little bit. So before, in our weapon collider, we have on collision enter 2D, and now we don't have a collision anymore, we have a trigger, and there is something different for that. So it's called on trigger enter 2D, and the on trigger enter 2D doesn't get a collision object, but it gets a collider object. So we get on trigger enter 2D collider 2D collider, because we're not colliding. We basically, so we don't get collision. The collision object basically has all the data, like how do we collide, where, at what point did we collide, and what is the collision normal, and what's the force that pushes us back and stuff like that. But since we don't have any force that pushes us back anymore, we simply get the collider, the objects that we hit. So let's see if this works. There are a couple of questions here. Next time you stream, can you show how to make a game like DayZ? Well, at some point maybe. The Zelda series will continue on a little bit further, but DayZ is quite complex. I'm not sure if that's a good project to show how to learn how to code, because I'm only doing this once a week and for 2 hours, so a DayZ series would take ages. Another question: What do you think I should learn in Unity? Because I don't have any skills in C#. C# is not very hard to learn, actually. I mean, but Unity offers you different options to code. If you want to code, then I would suggest just looking into C#. It's not that hard to pick up, actually. There are some really good tutorials. You only need some very basics, and then you can start watching my tutorial series from the beginning and just see what I do in Unity. Well, I get that, but when I was learning C++, it was tricky. Yes, C++ is way more difficult than C#. So don't get discouraged by the name or anything. It's really not that difficult. In Unity, if you create a new component, a new C# script, you basically get. Do I have one? Whenever you create a new script in Unity, you get new behavior script is fine. You get a new script created that has a start and an update method, and those do exactly what you would expect them to do. The start method gets called once the object gets created, and the update method gets called over and over again. And that's enough really to get started. I mean, in the update method you can move stuff. In the start method you can set up hit points and stuff like that. So don't think it's so hard to pick up. It's really not. And as Uplink is saying, there are some really great beginner tutorials on the internet. So I can only encourage you to Google some beginner tutorials. Even for Unity. I mean, Unity itself has some really good YouTube tutorials on their YouTube channel. So if you Google Unity on YouTube, you will find the official Unity YouTube channel, and there are tons of different tutorials. And they have example code as well. You can download my code here. This Zelda tutorial is public. You can get the code, so you can just get some code from other people and try to understand what it's doing, and start this way. It's really easy. So yeah, awesome. See, our chat is very encouraging. You should start coding. I'm really for, yeah, I'm all for that you start coding. Okay, let's delete this new behavior script again and see if our trigger stuff has worked. Press play and then see. Okay, as you can see, it's still, so we can still destroy the bushes, so our trigger method gets called correctly. It's our onTriggerEnter method. But the difference is when we hit something like the stone that doesn't move, we don't get pushed back here. And this is the behavior that I want to have, because this is how Zelda did it. So this is really cool. Okay, so let's see, we have about 20 minutes left. What can we do in 20 minutes? I have some leaf graphics, so we can create this. I think this is good. I have some we can create a particle effect. So once we destroy the bush, then there's some effect there, and it's a little, yeah, it works. It looks a little better. That should be cool. And so we can still use this. Oh, one thing. Let's do something else first. So as you can see, the sword is still here. So right now, we made it so that the sword basically works all the time. But we could also, since we started working on an inventory last time, we can make it so that the sword only works once we picked it up, which is actually way better. So in order to do that, so let me think a little bit. I don't want to make it too complicated. We have the sword prefab, right? Yes, so we have the sword prefab. So what we do first is, since we have the prefab and we applied everything, I'm going to delete the sword again. And if you remember, we created a method in our attack function that checks if we actually can attack. So let's see. Go back to the movement model, and we have a can attack method here. So what we're going to do is we're going to see if we have a weapon or not. So right now, we're going to start off with no weapon. So we have an item type, the equipped weapon, which is in the beginning is not a big key. In the beginning it's none, so we don't have a weapon. And we're going to use this in our can attack method. So we check our equipped weapon, and if the equipped weapon is none, then we cannot attack. And we also need to have, we need to return false. And we also need to have a way to equip a weapon. So let's do this. Public void equip weapon item type. And once we do, we basically just set the equipped weapon to the item type that we get. Okay, so what we did now is basically we have a new check here. If the equipped weapon is none, then we return false, and we have a way to equip a weapon. In our interaction model, we have so this is a different class that handles all the interaction, and it also handles the interaction with the chest, for example. So let's go over to the chest. Let's see what we did here. So once we go to the chest and once we interact with the chest, we see if it's already open, if it's not. Oh, and if you remember, our chest, we use it for the chest, but we use the same script for the sword as well, because the sword is basically a chest too. So our sword uses the interactable chest as well. So on interact, the character inventory, and we basically add the sword to our inventory, which is good. But we also want to equip the item if possible. So we can do a couple of different things here, but for now the easiest is okay, we hard code this for now, and later on because what we actually want to have is some kind of item database that and the item database checks basically each item has different stats. Can it be equipped? Can it be equipped to the weapon hand? Can it be equipped to the, is it a shield? Is it an alternate weapon like the boomerang or bow and arrow and stuff like that? So we actually want to have an item database for that. But it's since we only have 15 minutes left, we're going to hard code a little bit here and then make it more robust later on. So what we're going to do is in our add item function. Oh, that's not very nice. Anyway, we make it not as nice for now, and then later we make it a little bit more nice, a little nicer. So in our inventory, we're going to create, get a reference to our sword prefab. And if we add an item that is the sword, then we want to equip it and create it. Oh no, let's not put the sword prefab here. Let's just put basically add item. Create, if item type is the sword and the amount is bigger than 0, then we want to call our okay, yeah. For now, we just make it a quick hack, and later we make it nicer. So I don't want to have a reference to the movement model here actually, because the two models should be separated. But let's do this for now, so we just can see it working. Movement model, and then in awake, get a reference to that. Get component character movement model. So basically, if the type is sword and the amount is bigger than 0, then we want to call our movement model equip weapon item type, which is basically the sword, because we checked it here. And then, so this is one thing that I want to do differently, because basically in our item database there would be a flag if this would be equipable. So we would just have an event, hey, we just added a new item to our inventory, and then all the other scripts can see if is this an item I can work with. So the movement model could see, okay, so this item is the sword, let's check the database, okay, the sword is equipable, I don't have anything equipped, so let's equip the sword. This is what we're going to do later. I'm sure we can do that next week. I mean, working with databases is pretty interesting, I think. So, but right now we're going to do this. So equip weapon here, and then the same thing. What we also want to do is we want to create the sword as a child of our weapons hand. So we need a reference to our weapon hand here. Weapon parent, And we also need a reference to the prefab of the sword so we can create it. This again would usually be in the item database and we can get it later from there. But for now, we just set this up manually, create a reference to game object sword prefab. So basically equip weapon. For now we just do a check here. If item type is not sword, then we don't want to do anything. Otherwise we equip the sword and we create a new sword object. New sword object, which is we instantiate the prefab. Instantiate prefab, the sword prefab, and then we're going to set this new sword prefab. We attach it to our weapon parent. Weapon parent, and then we make sure that it's reset to the center. So the local position is 0. And the new sword object, the rotation is 0 as well. Or in this case, it's called an identity rotation. Okay, so we create the sword prefab, we make sure it's attached to the parent here, and then we also make sure that it's in the center. So this should work. Let's see. First of all, we press play and see, and we should see that we cannot attack now because we don't have anything equipped. So I press space and nothing is happening. So we cannot reach the chest because the bushes here are blocking our way. And if we go over to our sword here and interact with it, we cannot interact with it because why? Something is null. Let's see. Oh, I haven't set up all the things. All right. I have to set up all the public variables that I just created, which is the weapon parent for the movement model. This is U. And then the sword prefab. This is U. And I think that should be it. Let's try this again. Go over to the sword and interact with the sword. So now we have it. One sword got added, and now we can attack. Nice. And now we can go through here and go get the niceness, the emptiness of the chest. The chest has nothing in it yet, but we're getting there. But we can destroy some bushes here. This is pretty cool. The question is Unity or Unreal for a 3D adventure game, and my answer is it doesn't matter. Whatever you can work with. It really doesn't matter. If you know something about Unity, use Unity. If you know something about Unreal, use Unreal. Whatever enables you to create the game faster. And usually that means if you know the engine already. If you don't know both engines, take your pick. I mean, I think the community of Unity is little better. I think there are more tutorials and the forum is a little more active, so it might be easier to pick up. But then again, I'm a Unity coder and I don't know, I haven't used Unreal before, so I can't give you any. It's basically just hearsay. What I heard that it's a little bit more difficult to figure out how Unreal works if you start from zero, but that could be a rumor, I don't know. I don't like Blueprint. Can I code myself in Unreal? I think so. I think you can create your own scripts in C++ in Unreal. But then again, I haven't used Unreal before, so this is just something that I picked up and remembered. But I'm not quite sure. But you should be able to code C++ in Unreal. Okay, we have. Well, we only have 5 minutes left. Let's do something fun. Let's add the particle effects. So, but I quickly have to go to Photoshop here because I haven't set up the. I don't think. Oh, this is the wrong folder. To go over here. This is also the wrong folder. To the Dropbox here. Zelda series. Bush leaves. So we have 4 different types of leaves here. I'm going to scale them down because everything that Jesse creates is basically 4 times as big as it needs to be, which is pretty awesome. But for our purposes, we only need it very small. So save this. Files. Actually, let's do it differently. Let's create so in Unity, the effects engine, you can create a grid. So we have 4 different textures and we have 4 leaves, and then tell the effects engine to choose one at random, which is cool because then we have more variety in there. So let's do that. So let's make the canvas size to 256. Put some guides in here. I think this might. This leaf is a little bit too big, so make it just a tick smaller. Okay. Put this over here. Put this over here. And then the 4th one over here. So we have 4 different types of leaves. Now let me scale them down. We don't need them as big. This should be big enough. And another question, are you going to add a lighting system later, or Unity does that for you? Unity has a lighting system, but since we're doing a 2D game, I'm not quite sure how well it works for 2D actually. I haven't tried that. Let's see. Let's create a light and see what happens. Let's put a point light in here, and as you can see, nothing at all happens. Yeah, I was expecting that. So I'm sure there are ways to create lighting in 2D, but at the moment I'm not quite sure how to, if the Unity default stuff happens to work that way, or if we have to create our own system for that. If you're working in 3D, then you have lighting and a complete lighting system. Okay, what was I doing? I was saving our leaves here. So go over to, whoops, this is the wrong one. Assets, tutorial, sprites, environment. So we have all leaves here. Let's create a particle system. What is this? Oh, I'm not in 2D anymore. There you go. Let's create a particle system. There. So we start with this. And then we're going to create a material. Let's make an effects folder here, create material, bush leaves. And this should be a sprite, just a regular sprite here. And we add the sprites that we just created in here. I think we'll put them here, the bush leaves. Oh, okay. This is weird. Okay, so put the bush leaves in here. Where's the particle system? There it is. And we can set the renderer to the material that we just had. So, as you can see, now it throws out all those different leaves here, but it still throws out them in basically in the 4x4 grid. To randomize them, we go to the texture sheet animation tab here, and we activate this, and we're going to tell Unity that this is a sheet that has it's basically a 2x2 grid. You can see here now the particle system changed because only the first one is showing right now, because right now it's set to animate, and we don't want it to, but it should be animating. Why is it not animating? Oh yeah, you can see. So right now it's set to animate. So in the beginning the leaves are the dark ones, and then they change in here, and then they go smaller and smaller. It looks cool as well, but this is not what we want to achieve. We want to randomize them. So what we can do is we don't want to have frame over time. We tell it that it should be random between two constants. So we have between 0 and 4 basically, because we have 4 different sprites. So it counts like 1, 2, 3, 4. So as you can see here now, basically Unity chooses one of the sprites at random, which is pretty nice. But so let's change the emission a little bit. And the rate is fine. The shape should be a sphere, and they should have some. They should have some rotation. So let's rotate them a little bit, random between two constants, so they rotate between 45 and 90 degrees. The start rotation should be random between 0 and 360, so they start whatever. And yeah, I mean, and then we can go nuts with Unity here. Actually, what I'm going to do for now, I'm just making this quickly, and then so let's reduce the lifetime here. Let's make them die quicker, and we don't set the emission to time, so we don't want to emit all the time. We just want to have some bursts basically. So this is what we're setting up here. Look at this. And then the duration is okay. It's getting somewhere. Let's randomize the speed a little bit. 3 and 6. So it's a little different here. And then the lifetime is smaller. No, the lifetime should be at 1, and then just let's make them a little slower. And then make the emitter smaller so they all emit from the center. So yeah, I mean the particle system, I don't really want to make a tutorial for the particle system here. There are tons of different ways to do that. What I wanted to show is how to create those. So let's reduce the start size a little bit, so it's kind of like this. So I'm going to work on the particle system some more. But oh, it's not sprite renderer yet. Sprite default. There you go. Now it's a sprite renderer, but can we? I'm not sure if we can. Okay, yes, put them to the sort layer to ground objects, but we put the ordinal layer. Okay, so it is above the stuff that gets destroyed here. So for now, it looks good enough. I don't want to spend too much time on this. So this is our bush leaves effect, and I create the particle system here. And basically what I want to do is when I destroy one of the bushes, I want to create a particle system at the position of the bush so that the leaves get get created. And then I'm going to make a nicer particle system over the week, so next week it looks a little nicer. But it's, yeah, creating particle stuff is a bit time consuming, and I imagine not very interesting to look at. So let's go to our bushes here, and luckily we created a prefab, because now what we can do is we go to our attackable bush and we get a reference to a game object's destroy effect. And then on hit, basically what we check is if we have our if there is a destroy effect, we want to instantiate it. Destroy effect. So instantiate this to a game object. Instantiate destroy effect and set the position to the position that the bush is. Okay, so the only thing that we have to do now is we select our prefab from the bush and we go to our effects folder and get the bush leaves FX and get them here. And then let's move the character up a little bit so we don't have to walk over to the sword every time, so we are immediately there. Let's make this a little faster. So let's press play. Let's get the sword. And we still need the animation there. And then whoosh, and the leaves get created. They don't look quite realistic yet, but at least there's some effect there, which is cool. Yeah, isn't that nice? So now we can attack stuff. Really cool, really cool. So let's see, is that Unity 5? Yes, this is Unity 5, and it's free now, so you can download it, and everything that I do here you can do as well. So if you want to create your own stuff, and you even can get the source code to this project if you want to check it out and see how I did stuff. I'm going to post a link to the where you can download the source code in a second. Loving the Mario 8-bit figure in the back of the room. Yeah, this is actually a Lego figure. I had some time on my hands at some point and just did a Mario Lego. Why not? Boss Constructor, hey, how's it going? Thanks for stopping by. Nice. All right. So this basically we're already at 10 past 8. So I think this should be more than enough stuff to mull over for today. And so what we basically did today is we created a system where we implemented the attack animation. We created a system where different items can get attached to the animation. In this case, it's the sword. But later on we can do the same thing to attach a shield to the character as well and stuff like that. And then we learned how to interact with basically how to attack bushes, which is a good start to attack something. And yeah, as I said before, I mean I only set up the down attack animation for now, so the other attack animations don't work yet because this is just not very interesting to look at. So I'm going to set up the animations after I'm done with streaming and before I upload the stream to our Git repository. So then you will get basically all the 4 different animations and you will be able to attack in all directions. There's one thing that we have to figure out next time, and this is when we attack upwards. You can see that the hand is basically here, and the sword will be behind the character. So we have to figure out how we can make the sword appear behind the character when we attack upwards, and how the sword can be appear to be in front of the character when we attack downwards. This is something we have to figure out next time, and it's going to be the same with the shield. The shield is basically on the right hand, so the shield will be in front here, and if we move to the right, the shield will be in the back, and we also will have the shield behind the character when we move up, and it will be in front of the character when we move down. So yeah, we have to figure out a way how to do that. And yeah, what else? So since we are able to attack bushes now, I think it's time to add some real gameplay in here. Let me give you a really quick preview of some of the cool art that Jesse has created for us again. So we have an enemy here. Look at that. Let me open this up and make this big. We have a really cool bat enemy here, and we also have a flying. This is wrong direction. We have a flying animation for this character. So this is something we can do next time. So create some very basic AI for the bat, so it attacks us, and we can attack it. We also have some sprites for our character when he gets hit. Let me open this up. So you can see we have 3 different sprites here when our character gets hit. So that's something that we can set up once we get hit by the bat, and then we have all kinds of different UI elements as well. Everything that you know from Zelda actually. So we have some hard stuff here. We can use that for UI stuff. We have some rupees, so we can make sure that when we attack our enemy, that he drops some loot for us. So yeah, there's tons of directions we can go for next time. So hopefully I can see you back again next Saturday. It will be at the same time as always, on Saturday, 6 p.m. European time. That is at noon Eastern time and 9 a.m. Western time. Yeah, on the West Coast. Exactly. And as always, I'm going to upload the stream to the YouTube channel. You can go to letscodegames.com, and you find all the links there. So you find the links to the YouTube channel here. There's the schedule again. Oh, this is outdated. I have to update this. This is just stupid summertime, daylight savings time. And then anyway, so links to the Twitch channel, to the YouTube channel, to my Twitter here. But yeah, all the streams will be uploaded here. So if you missed anything and want to see what we did up until this point, you can see this on the YouTube channel. All right, so thank you for coming by, and I hope to see you all next time. Let's hear some of our music for this game as an outro. Have a great weekend.